ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So far we have completed chapter 3. Today we are going to start with chapter 4, the appearance of Sri Narada. So just to catch up with the previous section, what we have been studying previously, so that it will give you a very good connection to what we are going to discuss today. So we are hearing in our previous sessions, the sages in Naimisaranya, they assembled and they asked question to Srila Sutta Goswami, and in their question they asked, what is the ultimate good for all? So in responding to the sage's query, Srila Sutta Goswami, he briefly answered 4 of their questions. And now in chapter 3, when he is going to speak about more detail, when he is going to respond in more detail, he says, Atheha dhanya bhagavanta mitham Jadvasudevi Kralokanate Kurvanti Sarvatmakam Atma Bhavam. Means the sages, they are very much attached to the personality of Godhead. Therefore, they wanted to hear about the Supreme Lord. As we analyze the questions by the sages, we see their question was mostly related to Vasudeva, Krishna. So in that way, Atma Bhavam Kurvanti, those who have love unto the personality of Godhead. And they have asked some questions that actually intensifies further loving relationship with the Lord. Therefore, uh, Srila Sutta Goswami is saying that I am going to speak in detail by referring to Srimad Bhagavatam. What is Bhagavatam? Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam. So this Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of the Supreme Lord and Chakara Bhagavan Rishi. Lord Vyasadev, he has compiled this. Not only that, after compiling Srimad Bhagavatam, Tadidam Grahayam Masa Sutam Atma Vatam Varam. Atma Vatam Varam. Who is most respected amongst the self-realized, the chief of the self-realized. And who? Sutam, his own son, Srila Sukadeva Goswami. So after compiling Srimad Bhagavatam, he delivered it to his son Sukadev. And then he said in later, Srila Sukadev Goswami, he delivered it to Maharaj Parikshit. So tu samsravayamasa Maharajam Parikshitam. So, and when Prayapuvistam Gangayam, he gave up all his responsibility, came and being surrounded by the sages on the bank of Ganga, he waited till death. He didn't drink any water or didn't take any food. So in that way, he was listening Srimad Bhagavatam from Srila Sukadeva Goswami. And Srila Sutta Goswami says, I was present in that assembly when Srila Sukadeva Goswami recited Srimad Bhagavatam. So he is saying, because I have heard from Srila Sukadeva Goswami with rapt attention, therefore I can speak Srimad Bhagavatam. So now he is going to narrate Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, in the beginning of chapter 4, Srila Vyasadeva, he gives his comment, Vyasavacha. Iti brahvanam samstuya muninam dirghasatrinam vruddha kulapati sudam brihadbrij saunaka pravit. On hearing Sutta Goswami speak thus, Saunaka Muni, who was the elderly learned leader of all the rishis engaged in their prolonged sacrificial ceremony, congratulated Sutta Goswami by addressing him as follows. So in the beginning of this chapter, Srila Sridhar Swami he writes, तुर्ये भागवतारंभ कारणत्वेन वर्ण्यते व्यासस्य अपरितोषस्तु तपः प्रवचनादिभिः. So Vyasadeva was not satisfied. He was despondent. And the despondency of Vyasadeva has caused the appearance of Srimad Bhagavatam. So how this Srimad Bhagavatam has taken its appearance, it is going to be described in this chapter, in chapter 4. And of course, Vyasadev's tapasya is austerity, and Later on, he is speaking to he. Later on, he will be instructed by his guru, Narad Muni. So, in the beginning, upon hearing Sutta Goswami, that when Sutta Goswami said, I am going to narrate the same Bhagavatam which I have heard from the great powerful sage, Srila Sukadeva Goswami. So now, the sages in Naimisharanya going to ask the questions. And Srila Prabhupada, he is making a very wonderful comment to this verse, first verse, where it is spoken about Bruddha Kulapati Sutam. So, Bruddha Kulapati, there's Saunak Rishi, he was Bhaya and Jnana Bruddha. He was very elderly amongst all the sages who assembled there. Therefore, he was chosen to be the leader. And he was very learned in the Vedic literature. Therefore, he congratulated Srila Sutta Goswami, and he is going to ask questions on behalf of all the assembled sages. Srila Prabhupada writes, Srila Shaunak Rishi had all these qualifications, and thus he stood up to congratulate Sri Sutta Goswami when he expressed his desire to present Srimad Bhagavatam exactly as he heard it from Sukadeva Goswami, and also realized it personally. Personal realization does not mean that one should does not mean that one should, out of vanity, attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass the previous acharya. He must have full confidence in the previous acharya, and at the same time, he must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in the suitable manner. The original purpose of the text must be maintained. So this is very important, that when we ask the question, what is the purpose, that we can learn it as it is without transgressing the acharyas, and we can present it later on. So then now Saunak Rishi going to ask question, Suta Suta Mahabhaga Vadavana Vadatambara Katham Bhagavatim Punyam Yataha Bhagavan Suka. So he's saying that what you have heard from Sukadeva Goswami, please tell us, recite this Bhagavatam. What is it? Kasmin Juge Pravritteyam Sthaneva Kena Hetuna. When this Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken, in which yoga, Kuta Sanchodita, being inspired by who? Krishna, Kritavan Sanghitam Muni. Krishna means Krishna, Dvaipayan, Vyasadeva. That Vyasadeva, who has compiled this Srimad Bhagavatam, when did he compile this? Why was this taken up? And where did Krishna, Dvaipayan, Vyasadeva get the inspiration from? Then he says, Tasya putra mahayogi samadri nirvikalpakaha ekantam natirunidra gudha mudha ive yate. So here they are asking that this Sukadeva Goswami, Tasya putra means the son of Vyasadeva, Mahayogi, was a great devotee, a yogi. Samadrik, he did not have any duality, nirvikalpaka, Veda Jnana Rahita. He didn't see any difference. Ekantamati unnidra, The living entities in this world are sleeping on the lap of Maya. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Koto nidra jao tumi pisachir kole, Maya pisachir kole. But Srila Sukadeva Goswami, he was beyond the influence of the material activities. He was totally free from the activities of this material world. So therefore, he said, Nirvikalpaka. And in the next verse, how Sukadeva Goswami was devoid of the distinction between male and female. That's also a sign of Veda Jnana Rahita, who is devoid of having duality between. He does not see the distinction between male body and female body. That is, in a particular sense here, been explained as the Nirvikalpakaha. So the Nirvikalpaka Bhava have been defined in the next verse. But Srila Prabhupada writes in text number 4, a conditioned soul and a liberated soul may apparently be on the same platform, but factually they are differently engaged, and their attention is always alert, either in sense enjoyment or in self-realization. So Srila Sukadeva Goswami was a perfectly Brahman realized yogi. So he was completely absorbed in transcendence. He was totally oblivious to the external surroundings. But a Baddha Jiva, a conditioned soul, he takes pleasure in material objects. So this is the difference. The conditioned soul is absorbed in matter, whereas the liberated soul is completely indifferent to matter. So now how this Srila Sukadeva Goswami was completely indifferent to the matter. One incidents have been narrated in the next verse. Our body is composed of matter, and he, Sukadeva Goswami, does not identify with the material body. That's why it is said, Drishtanuyantam rishimatmajamapyanagnam Debyo Rya Paridadhurna Sutasya Chitram Tadbhikhya Prachati Mano Jagadustavasti Stripum Vidhanatu Sutasya Vivikta Drishte. So after taking birth, Srila Sukadeva Goswami, he left his home, and Srila Vyasadeva was following from behind, and he was calling him Ha Putra, Ha Putra. He wanted Sukadeva Goswami to return back to his home. And while going on the way, there was a pond, and the Apsaras were taking bath in the pond. And when Sukadeva Goswami went, he was totally naked, because his body was fully grown up. And the Apsaras who were taking bath in the pond, by seeing Sukadeva Goswami, they did not feel ashamed of Sukadeva Goswami. But even though Sukadeva Goswami was naked, but when Vyasadeva, who was not naked, he was passing by, the Apsaras, out of shyness, they came out of the pond and they started putting their garments. Upon seeing this, Srila Vyasadeva, he asked them. This is how you can understand that even though Srila Sukadeva Goswami was fully naked, because he was Nirvikalpaka, he did not have the difference He didn't see the difference in the male body and female body. Therefore, the ladies, they did not feel any shy. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada is explaining this point in his purport very nicely. He's saying the ladies who were bathing could understand the mind of a man simply by studying his demeanor, just as by looking at a child, one can understand how innocent he is. Sukadev Goswami was a young boy, 16 years old, and therefore all the parts of his body were developed. He was naked also, and so were the ladies. But because Sukadev Goswami was transcendental to sex relations, he appeared very innocent. This is very important. That when one is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, or in the thoughts of the personality of Godhead, who has stopped his material engagements, then it is possible. This is what is called the Nirvikalpa situation. But here, a question can be asked that Srila Vyasadeva, you know, he is an incarnation of God, and of course, he is a, he's like a father for the Apsaras. They are young girls. Vyasadeva was a very old man. So how did this thing happen? So Prabhupada, he writes in the purport that the outer dress is made of matter by material nature to attract the opposite sex, and thus keep one entangled in material existence. A liberated soul is above this perverted distinction. He does not distinguish between one living being and another. For him, they are all one and the same spirit. The perfection of the spiritual vision is the liberated stage, and Srila Sukadeva Goswami attained that stage. Srila Vyasadeva was also in the transcendental stage, but because he was in the householder's life, he did not pretend to be a liberated soul as a matter of custom. Even though Vyasadeva was transcendental, he did not pretend. So this is the point. So in that way, the sages now going to ask further question. They are saying, Katham alakshita paure samprapta purujangalan anmatta muka jadavat vicharan vajusahoy. So this Sukadeva Goswami, who was completely outside of the material consciousness, was completely out of material consciousness, and he was moving around like a mad man, dumb and deaf man. How did the residents of the Kuru and Jangal recognize him? So, Kathang sa Pandave yasya Rajarsi Munina Saha Sambada Samabhuttata Jatresha Satvati Shruti. So another question is, Srila Sukadeva Goswami was such a person who did not have any interest to meet with the people of this world. How come he took interest to speak this Srimad Bhagavatam to to Maharaj Parikshit? So that's also a very important point. And they are speaking about Srila Sukadev Goswami that so bodhohana matram hi griheshu grihamedhina. Sukadev Goswami would go to an householder's uh, house and he will stay there long enough uh, for a cow to be milked. And where is the time for him to sit down in one place and discuss this great literature? Hmm. He was not accustomed to stay at any householder's residence for more than half an hour, Prabhupada is writing. But then you can ask this question, why did he go? Our acharyas, they explain, is Krishna Chakravarti Thakur says, Nato Vikshartham. He used to go to the householder's residence just to sanctify their house. He didn't go there to beg alms. Or even if he went to get alms from the householder's residence, but on the plea of begging, he was purifying them actually. Mahanta Swabhavai Tarite Pamor Nijakarja Nahitohu Jantar. Even in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Gargacharya Muni he came to Nanda Baba's house to perform name-giving ceremony for Krishna Balram, at that time he also quoted this verse, Mahadvi Chalanam Nrinam Grihinam Dina Chetasam. Of course, Nanda Baba is not like an ordinary living entity. He is a very highly advanced soul. But he, just to teach us, is telling Grihinam Dina Chetasam. Dina Chetasam. Normally, in Grihastha life, people have to engage their consciousness in material activities. Sometimes they perform some kamya karma also. So in that way, they are having, their heart is dina chetasa, very poor heart in that way. And Nishya Sahib, Kalpate Nanya Thakur. So you go to their house just to purify them, just to help them elevate. So in that way, he used to go and stand at the door of the householder long enough for a cow to be milked. And he did this just to sanctify the residence. The point is, so why did he, where is the time for him to speak Srimad Bhagavatam? Prabhupada is writing, he used to go to sanctify the residence by his auspicious presence. Therefore, Shukadev Goswami is an ideal preacher established in the transcendental position. From his activities, those who are in the renounced order of life and dedicated to the mission of preaching the message of Godhead should learn that they have no business with householders save and except to enlighten them in transcendental knowledge. And this is a very interesting comment Prabhupada is making. Those who are in the renounced order of life, engaged in the preaching of Bhagavata Dharma, they should not have any other desire than just to preach about Srimad Bhagavatam. Then in next 5 verses, starting from text number 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, in these 5 verses, now they're going to ask about Maharaj Parikshit. Why they are asking this question? Because in previous chapter, Sutta Goswami has mentioned that Vyasadeva, after compiling Srimad Bhagavatam, he taught to his son Shukadev Goswami. And now they asked about Sukadeva Goswami. And there also he had mentioned Sukadeva Goswami in turn, he delivered this message of Srimad Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit. Who is Maharaj Parikshit? He is a great emperor. Now you will hear. They're going to ask about him. So now in next 5 verses they are asking about Maharaj Parikshit. Abhimanyu Sutam Suta Rahu Bhagavatattama. So in that way, this Maharaj Parikshit, who is that? Abhimanyu Sutam, son of Abhimanyu. Okay. Rahul Bhagavata Uttama. He is Bhagavata Uttama. He is an Uttama Bhagavata. He is a great devotee of the Lord. Tasya Janma Mahasharyam. He is and Karmani cha. His birth and activities are glorious. Ashcharya, wonderful. So please narrate to us. Definitely, those who are Mahabhagavata, their activities and births are very, very glorious. And by hearing the activities of a Mahabhagavata, one can purify oneself and also elevate to the higher status of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada is writing, the birth of Maharaj Parikshit is wonderful because in the womb of his mother he was protected by the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. His activities are also wonderful because he chastised Kali. So this is how Maharaj Parikshit was saved in the womb of his mother Uttara. Will be discussed on the later chapters. So they want to hear about his birth and activities. So Samrat Kasyapa Hetu Pandunam Manavardhana. Pandunam Manavardhana. Actually, when in later part of Srimad Bhagavatam explanation, you will come to see when Maharaj Parikshit was born, at that time Yudhishthira Maharaj, he called for Grahavipra. Grahavipra are those who can make a study of the birth chart and forecast the detail about the child's future. So at that time, Maharaj Yudhishthira, he was very curious to know how this boy is going to lead the tradition, family tradition. And he was told that he is going to become like Maharaj Pandu in his quality, Pandunam Manavardhana. So they are asking this question, who was increasing the prestige of Pandu dynasty. He was such a great soul. And why did he give up everything and to sit down on the bank of Ganges and fast until death? This is a very befitting question. Somebody who is a samrat, who is an emperor, why did he choose to give up everything and went down to the bank of Ganga and fast until death? Why did he do that? And his further qualities have been described. Namanti jatpada niketamatmanaha shivaya hanyas dharani satrava. So here it is said that jatpada niketamatmana namanti. Maharaj Parikshit was a very powerful emperor. All the kings were small rulers under him. They would come with tributes. And where they will keep? They will keep near the feet of Maharaj Parikshit. Normally, when king sits on the throne, there is a small platform is there to keep his feet. That is called Padavita, Padaniketam. So, Katam Sabira Shyamanga Dustyaja. You can imagine what would be the opulence of Maharaj Parikshit. Shyamanga Dustyaja. She was having a lot of opulence. Dustyaja. In this world, when we have a little opulence, we feel very much, it becomes very difficult for us to take to the renounced order of life, because we all are very much attached to our belongings. Now you can imagine Maharaj Parikshit, who had such opulent life, how could he, give up? So that is the question. Then somebody can ask, oh, why he cannot give up? The point is, जो उत्तम श्लोक परायणा जनः शिवाय लोकस्य भवाय भूतये, यह उत्तम श्लोक परायणा जनः. उत्तम श्लोक, Lord, Supreme Lord is described as Uttama Shloka. Uttama Shloka. Uttama Shloka Parayana means one who is always engaged in the thoughts of the personality of Godhead. He is called Uttama Shloka Parayana. And this Maharaj Parikshit, who was very much devoted to the personality of Godhead. Shivaya Lokaya Bhavaya Bhutaye. Shivaya, for the welfare of all living beings, for upliftment, for the economic development. Because the king's duty is to protect the citizens. Normally, a pious king lives just to help the citizens be satisfied materially, and the king ensures the citizens grow spiritually as well. Jivanti natmartham asho parasayam. Why do we live? If we ask a question to ourselves, we don't live for others, right? We are living for ourselves. We have a house, we have this body, we have family members to take care. So me and mine, right? That's why we live to maintain this body. But a king who is a representative of God, he does not live for himself, neither he lives for his family members. Of course, he is going to fulfill the desire of his family members, but here it is said, parasayam. Nahi paropajjivanam swayam tyaktum uchitam ityartha. So when a king's body is meant for the protection and upliftment of the citizens, and how could he give up such a body? Right? Even the body of a devotee does not belong to the devotee. That is the property of the Supreme Lord. We know when Sanatana Goswami, he wanted to end his life by putting his body under the chariot wheel because he was having boil in his body. That is the incidents in Puri. When he had this boil on his body, he would not come on the regular way to meet with Lord Chaitanya. He will come on the bank of the seashore, where the sand is very hot under scorching sun. He will follow that course. And when Chaitanya, then he was thinking, why should I keep this body? And when I'm going to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he embraces me, and all the pus and the dirty, liquid coming from my body is touched in the transcendental body of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I don't want to survive. He was planning to give up his body. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he told him, he said, Sanatan, you are not supposed to do that, because you have surrendered yourself to me. That means this body does not belong to you. So in that way, whatever the difficulties a devotee may face with in his life, they never destroy their life. I mean, they never destroy their body. Sometimes we hear some devotee, they commit suicide. That's not good actually. Devotee should not do that, because we have given our body in the service of Krishna, whatever it may be. But here, anyway, so they are asking, the sages asking this question. The king survives for the citizens. His his body is a shelter of others. Uh, then why did he give up his body? So Prabhupada is asking this question, writing the purport. The king is the representative of the Supreme Lord, and therefore the king's interest must be identical with that of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord wants all living beings to be obedient to him and thereby become happy. Therefore, the king's interest is to guide all subjects back to the kingdom of God. Huh? So this is the primary duty of a king, that he must guide the citizen. He is actually he is representing the Supreme Lord. It's very important service. Nowadays, kings are not concerned about helping the living entities to get connected with the God, or how the living entities can follow the plan of the God. The ministers, present kings, they are not very much concerned about that fact, because we are in this age of Kali. It's a very unfortunate situation. Anyway, but there are so many devotees in our movement who have dedicated their life to propagate this mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they have taken this responsibility. That's good. And then further, the last question they are asking, Tatsarvam na samachaksha prishto jat kinchana manne tvam vishaye vacham snatam anyat prachandasat. So they are saying, we know that you are expert in the meaning of all subjects. Tat sarvam na samachakshva. So, Sutta Goswami, you are very expert in all those subjects, except some portions of the Vedas. That means the Sutta Goswami was a Purana Bhakta, a speaker of Puranas. And Purana, they reveal certain section of the Veda. So therefore, he's saying that Tat Sarvam Nasamachakshva, except certain portion of the Vedas. And thus, you can clearly explain the answers to all the questions we have just put to you. So this is a very important point, that when we approach our spiritual master or somebody, we inquire from them, we must know that this person must have studied properly. Then only he will have the qualification to respond to our queries. So here they are saying that you know the Shastra very well. So whatever question we have put forward to you, we believe that you can very well explain to us. Now, Srila Sutta Goswami starts speaking from text number 14. Sutta Vacha. Dvapare samanu prapte tritiye yuva parijaye yatah parasaraj yogi vasabhyam kalayahre. So they had asked at what time, when it was taken up. So therefore he is saying, now, Srila Sutta Goswami, he says, there is an overlap of the millennium. It does not happen all the time. Sometimes, Tritiya Yoga Pariyaya, when the second millennium overlaps the third. Normally, the Yuga cycle, you can say the chronological order of the Yuga cycle starts with Satya Yuga, Dvapara Yuga, Treta Yuga, and Kali Yuga. But in the uh, regime of Vaivasvata Manu, there is an overlap of the 28th round of these 4 millenniums. 28th round means in a day of Brahma, there are 1,000 Chaturjug. Chaturjug means Satya, Treta, Dwapar, Kali. These 4 yugas combined together to form one Chaturjug. So a yuga cycle, right? Like this, first Chaturjug, second Chaturjug, third Chaturjug. Similarly, on 28th millennium, that time there was an overlap. And that time, Jata Parasara, Vyasadeva was born to Parasar in the womb of Vasavi, right? This saying, Vasavyam, the womb of Satyavati, the daughter of Vasu. There is a story in Mahabharata which explains there is a Vasu by the name Uparichara, Uparichara Vasu. And this Vasu actually um, uh, there's an Apsara, there's an Apsara who was cursed by a sage. What is her name? Just 1 minute. Adrika Apsara. And he was cursed by a sage and became a fish. And that fish became pregnant by this by the semen of Uparichara Vasu, and that fish was caught by a fisherman. And when he caught the fish, there are 2 babies born, one son and one daughter. The son was Matsyaraj, right? And in Matsya days, Matsyaraj is there. And then the daughter remained with this fisherman. And once upon a time, Parasar Muni, when he was on his pilgrimage, he wanted to cross the river. And at that time, the father who sells the boat was taking his food. And when Parasar Rishi approached the river and he was searching where is the boatman, he couldn't find him. Then, because Rishi wanted to cross the river, at that time, Rishi, the father, instructed his daughter, who was born from the fish, Satyavati, to help Parasar Muni cross the river. That is how, on the way, there is a union, and Vyasadeva was born to Satyavati. So, but actually, this Satyavati was not the daughter of the fisherman. She was the daughter of Vasu. Therefore, it is said like that. And in text number 15, this Sutta Goswami says, once upon a time, Vyasadeva, as the sun rose, took his morning ablution on the waters of the Saraswati and sat alone to concentrate. And it says, So kadachit Saraswatya upasprisya jalam shuchi. Upasprisya means performing acharan, snanam, etc. So one morning, after performing his morning routine sadhana, and he was concentrating on the Supreme Lord, sitting on the bank of Saraswati River. Paravaragnya Sarishi. Now, the qualification of Vyasadeva have been defined. Paravragnya. Atita nagata vigya. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. Atita means past. Anagata means future. No agata, anagata. So, Gya means knower. One who knows past and future. And that is Vyasadeva, Rishi. Kalena Vyaktarangha Abhyaktarangha, the great force of the unmanifest time. What happened? Yuga Dharma Vyatikaram. Because of the influence of time, there was an anomaly in the duties of the millennium. Or you can say Yuga Dharma Vyatikaram. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur translates it. Yuga Dharmanam Vyatikara Kalena Nasham. Vyatikaram Kalena Nasham. Like we have seen, there is a description, scripture, which tells about Kito Jadhyayato Vishnu Tatayajata Mukhaidva Pare Paricharjayam Kalota Kirtanat. So there are different Yuga Dharmas for the different ages, right? But sometimes in the change of the millennium, normally, for example, after Satya Yuga, Dwapar Yuga will start. Due to the influence of time, the dharma will also degrade. In the beginning, maybe it will increase, and then slowly it will glide down. Just like there is a mention in Brahma Vaivarta Purana that as Kali Yuga progresses, towards the end of Kali Yuga, there will be only one Varna, that is Shudra Varna. Everybody will be very much degraded. Now you can see some Hari Bhakta are there, some Brahmanas are there. There are some, distinct people in the society you can still see, right? So similarly, when after Satya Yuga, Dwapara starts or Treta starts, at that time, this Yuga Dharma, they actually start to decay. So in that way, this Vyasadeva, he could see that in every yuga there is a decline of the religious principles. And how does it happen? Due to the unseen force in due course of time. So Vyasadeva could see this, realize this. Therefore, he is saying, he also further, Bhautikanam cha bhavanam sakti hrasam cha tatkritam sakti bhautikanam means those who have this material body. Our body is made up of matter. And as time progresses, sakti hrasam cha tatkritam. Tatkritam means kalakritam. In due course of time, we lose the stamina in our body. And asaddha dhana nisatvat durmedhan rasitayusha. These are the qualities you could see. As time progresses, people asaddha dhana, they will lose their faith. They will become faithless. Nisatvan, they will be devoid of the goodness, mood of goodness. Durmedhan. Durmedhan means those will be dull-witted. No medha sakti, no dhi sakti. And rasitayusha, the lifespan will be reduced. And durbhaganscha janan bhiksha durbhagam. people will be very unlucky. Just like we in this age of Kali, right? We don't have any good luck. People are always suffering. And Vyasadeva could see Janan Bhikhya. He could see this will be the state of the people. Munir Divyena Chakshusha. Vyasadeva had Divya Chakshu, his transcendental vision. And Sarva Varnasmanam Dadyau Shitam Amoghadrik. So, because he had this transcendental knowledge, which cannot be defeated at any time, so he could see all these things, then he decided, I must do something. And this is how a great soul thinks. Then what did he do? Chatur hatrum karma suddham prajanam vikhyat vaidikam vedadhat yajna santatyai vaidi veda mekam chatur vidham. So Vyasadeva, there was only one Veda initially. He divided the Veda into four. And in these four Vedas, there are karma parampara, means when people want to lead a successful life, even as a karmi, which can gradually lead them to the platform of achieving Krishna consciousness, there are series of karma they need to perform. And when they perform this karma, the rituals has to be a performed in accordance with the injunctions of the Veda. So Vyasadeva, he wanted to instruct people of this age of Kali so that they can follow the path of Veda, uh, Vedic rituals, then they can grow. So here it says, Veda mekam chaturvidam, Veda. What is Veda actually? If we say whether one Veda or four Veda. Veda. Vedayati dharmam brahma cha Veda. Sometimes we say like Vedic. What is that? You need to understand. Veda. Vedayati dharmam brahma cha Veda. Those scriptures which gives narration about dharma and Brahma. That is Veda. Then when we say Vedic, Vedic is the adjective of Veda, what Veda, right? Means it is talking about Veda. It's giving some information, it's giving the quality. So when you say Vedic activity, means those activities which are helping us to become engaged in performing dharma or helping us to know about Brahma, that is called Vedic. So you can understand Vyasadeva, he had this insightful understanding. Therefore, he divided the four Vedas and he taught people how to follow the principles that are explained in the Vedas so that they can achieve the highest goal in human form of life. So after dividing the Veda, he taught it to his different disciples. And he said in text number 21, after the Vedas were divided into four divisions, Paila Rishi became the professor of the Rig Veda, Jaimini the professor of the Sam Veda, Vaishampayana alone became glorified by Yajurveda. Then the Sumanta Muni, Angira, who was very devotedly engaged, was entrusted with the Atharva Veda. And my father, Romaharshana, was entrusted with the Puranas and historical records. Then he says, all these learned scholars in their turn rendered their entrusted Vedas unto their many disciples, grand disciples, and great grand disciples, and thus the respective branches of the followers of the Vedas came into being. Uh, so there was a time when it was needed for the disciples of Vyasadeva to further render the knowledge they had received. Just like Prabhupada. Prabhupada also done some rendition, all right, by giving Bhaktivinoda purports to Srimad Bhagavatam texts. And we are taking benefit from Prabhupada. So that is what it was done by the great rishis. And they taught to their disciples. Like we are studying from Prabhupada's purport now. Prabhupada is saying the Vedic knowledge broken into different branches by different disciplic successions has been distributed all over the world. No one, therefore, can claim independent knowledge beyond the Vedas. In this age of Kali, some people may not have the intelligence to understand the purpose of the Veda, and they may, you know, create a perverted meaning for their sense gratification. But no, Veda is there to give us guidance in the matter of dharma and brahma. And why did he divide the Veda? He said in 24. तो एव वेदा दुर्मेधैर धार्यन्ते पुरुषैर्यथा एवं चकार भगवान व्यास कृपणवत्स. Thus the great sage Vyasadeva, who is very kind to the ignorant mass, edited the Vedas so they might be assimilated by less intellectual mind. Why explanation is necessary? Because people who are devoid of intelligence, they require such explanations, right? Like if you talk about the acharyas like Rupa Sanatan, Jiva Goswami, on those days, everybody understood Sanskrit. So there's no need of any translation. By reading from Mula, people could get educated. But as days are moving by, we are not very much fluent in Sanskrit. We cannot understand. Therefore, we need a translation. And when you actually translate, Sanskrit is a very, very secret language, we can say, a concealed language, not secret, we can say like this. Sanskrit is a very concealed language. The writer, when he writes the commentary, every word has its own meaning hidden. The mood of the writer is hidden in the words, in the Sanskrit words. Therefore, when you translate, unless you become a very expert who knows the concept very clearly, you'll make a mistake. Therefore, not everybody can translate. There's no literal translation. The intended meaning is revealed in translation. Intended meaning. That's why in India, scholars, they translate the intended meaning, rendered meaning. So in that way, Vyasadeva, he could understand and he just gave it for us. Srila Prabhupada writes, a class of men who claim Brahminical qualification simply by their birthright in the family of a Brahmana claim that the study of the Vedas is a monopoly of the Brahmana caste only. Another section of the people take this as an injustice to members of other castes. who do not happen to take birth in a Brahmana family. But both of them are misguided. The Vedas are subjects which had to be explained even to Brahmaji by the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the subject matter is understood by persons with exceptional qualities of goodness. Persons who are in the mood of passion and ignorance are unable to understand the subject matter of the Vedas. Just by being born in a Brahmana family, one cannot claim to be a perfect student of the Veda. And Brahma needed explanation. Brahma, who is a very high level Brahmana, right? He's topmost Brahmana, Brahma. Then what to speak of us? We are lazy and crazy people in this age of quality, totally misguided by our lazy and crazy intelligence, always inspired by a mood of passion and ignorance. No tinge of goodness. Therefore, we need some explanation. Prabhupada is giving, that's good. And you see, what did he do? Sri Sudra Dija Bandhunam Taina Suti Gochara. Out of compassion, the great sage thought it wise that this would enable men to achieve the ultimate goal of life. Thus, he compiled the great historical narration called the Mahabharata for women, laborers, and friends of the twice born. Those who are born in the Brahmana family but devoid of the Brahminical qualifications, they are Divija Bandhus. So for them, Stri Sudra Divya Taina Shruti Gochara. One who has not undergone such Garbhadana Samskar or spiritual family planning is not accepted as being of an actual twice born family. So Prabhupada here speaking about the Garbhadana Samskar for the Grahasthas. Prabhupada writes, if the father and the mother do not undertake the process of spiritual family planning, that is Garbhadana Samskar, and simply beget children out of passion only, their children are called Bijabandhus. Thus, Bijabandhus are certainly not as intelligent as the children of the regular twice born families. The Dvijabandhus are classified with the Sudras and the women class, who are by nature less intelligent. The Sudras and the women class do not have to undergo any samskara save and accept the ceremony of marriage. Or twice born Brahmanas. Still, his mind was not satisfied. Although he engaged himself in working for the total welfare of the people. So now you can understand. Srila Vyasadeva he could see the degraded condition of the age of Kali. So he was thinking to save these conditioned souls, now I can divide the Veda and give further uh, explanation in Puranas so that they can they can stay in connection with Vaidika Dharma to grow. But even after doing all these classifications, all these divisions, he was not very satisfied. He did so much volume of work, but still he was not satisfied. Nati Prahita Hridaya. He did not become, his heart was not satisfied. Then he is thinking, I have under strict disciplinary vows. Here it is said, Dhrita Bratena hi maya chandanshi gurovagnaya. Vyasadeva was a strict brahmachari. Of course, he is an incarnation of God. He is perfect brahmachari. And he is saying, Gurava Agnaya. He is saying that I have perfectly worshipped my spiritual master, and I have followed all the vows. I have worshipped the Vedas, uh, Chandamsi, and also I have done the sacrifices, and I have worshipped the sacrificial altar. I have also abided by the rulings and have shown the import of disciplic succession through the explanation of the Mahabharata, by which even women, Shudra, and others can see the path of religion. So here is a very interesting point you need to take a note on. Even though Vyasadeva was engaged in the total welfare activities for the entire human being, and in his understanding, he has even given access for the laborers and the women who are uh, who can understand the Veda. But still, he is feeling incomplete. That means unless and until we connect everyone with Krishna consciousness, devotional service, there is no question of satisfaction in following any type of so-called religious activities, whether you perform Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, doesn't matter. So he's saying, I am feeling incomplete, though I myself am fully equipped with everything required by the Vedas. Small purport is 30, verse number 30, Prabhupada writes, undoubtedly, Srila Vyasadeva was complete in all the details of Vedic achievements. Purification of the living being submerged in matter is made possible by the prescribed activities in the Vedas. But the ultimate achievement is different. Unless it is attained, the living being, even though fully equipped, cannot be situated in the transcendentally normal states. Srila Vyasadeva appeared to have lost the clue and therefore felt dissatisfaction. Then he says, Kimba Bhagavata Dharma na prayana nirupita. Um, I have, maybe I did not sufficiently describe devotional service, Bhagavata Dharma. Kimba, he's doubting, he's having a kind of, uh, conflict in his mind. Maybe I have not sufficiently glorified the Supreme Lord. Priya Paramahamsanam Toeva Yachyuta Priya. That is the food of the devotees of the Lord. Because I have not sufficiently glorified the Supreme Lord, I have not given much description about devotional service, which is dear both to perfect beings and to the infallible Lord. He says, Priya Paramahamsanam Toeva Achyuta Priya. This devotional service dear to both Achyuta and his devotees. Therefore, he is saying, as mentioned before, Narada reached the cottage of Krishna Dvaipayan Vyasa on the bank of Saraswati just as Vyasadeva was recreating his defects. So this is how you can understand. When Vyasadeva was lamenting, he was dissatisfied. He was trying to understand what's wrong with me, what did I do? In spite of doing so much work, I'm not still satisfied. I am thinking I have done so much good work for the human being. I have tried to situate them on the path of Dharma, but still I am not satisfied. And at that time, Vyasadeva arrived on his, Narada Muni arrived in that same place where Vyasadeva ashram was there on the bank of Saraswati. And then at the auspicious arrival of Sri Vyasadeva, at the auspicious arrival of Sri Narada, Sri Vyasadeva got up respectfully and worshipped him, giving him veneration equal to that given to Brahmaji, the creator. So when he saw his Guru Maharaj had already arrived in the ashram, he got up and he received him, offered him proper worship. This is how chapter 4 concludes. In the next class, we will start from chapter 5 and we will hear what happened after he received his Guru Maharaj in his ashram. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram,